40.
Say 39.
Number 1.
39.
1.
38.
37.
36.
35.
34.
33.
32.
31.
30.
29.
28.
27.
26.
25.
24.
23.
22.
21.
20.
19.
18.
17. 16.
15.
14.
13.
12.
11.
10.
9. 8.
7. 6. 5.
4.
3.
2.
1.
Sí, señor and señorito, it is time for a mouthwash. Welcome to the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty, fresh take on politics. Tonight we have the best of Mouthwash. These are going to be clips from shows of the past. You're going to see all sorts of stuff tonight. So, hey, stay tuned here and let's get to that first clip. All right, my friend Watson, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great, John. Appreciate being on the program. This is really cool.
Yeah, I wish I had your voice. I mean, mine's not that good. You got that good radio voice thing there. So
yeah, my parents are from Haiti. So me, my brother, me and my siblings, we are firstborn generation here in the States to my parents. We grew up in New York, and it was a humbling experience, John. With having immigrant parents who barely spoke English. Poverty was brought to a whole nother level, where there were many days that the refrigerator looked like the showroom model, empty.
Lucy, how you doing tonight? Earlier you said you were feeling a little under the weather, but
I was. I had eaten the most amazing pecan pie on top of a whole bunch of other stuff, and that was a mistake. So it was of my own doing. I was practicing the sin of gluttony because God has placed me here. Watson, I cannot wait to ask you some questions about your heritage. I was a French major and learned a few things about Haiti. But Watson, I am so intrigued, actually, by your parentage and your parents coming in as immigrants. I was a French major at IUPUI, and I learned about Dessalines and Toussaint Louverture, and really just inspired by, the fight for freedom and, throwing off the yokes of literally colonialism and slavery. And that, maybe that's using the word colonialism or colonizers is going to make me sound like a far leftist, which is not true.
Yeah.
But how wonderful that your family is here in a living testament. So first, I'd like to ask, do you have any family stories, reaching back into the 1800s from the real literal struggle for freedom that is your genetic inheritance?
Honestly, to tell you the truth, what was really heartbreaking for me is my parents fled here in the late 60s because of the fact that they were terrorized by the baby doc and papa doc. They fled the persecution, and this was racial discrimination because both my parents were light skinned, and they were considered part of the bourgeoisie. So my mom suffered PTSD. She came here with PTSD because of all the attacks from the Tonton Macoute and the voodoo militias that were assigned to terrorize. So as a kid growing up in New York, my mom would recount stories of skeletons attacking her, paralyzed, nothing she can do, things a 5-year-old never should hear. So for me, I think that there's a lot, there's colonialism that was unfortunate that took place in there, but I believe that there was a sense of a part of socialism that came into Haiti that made them that they believe that they could operate, because half of Haiti is Catholicism and half of it's voodoo, and you just might as well say like 100% of it is voodoo because of the fact that they're just not really leaning on God to help them come out of their situation. There's so much corruption that's going on in that country, and the United States has played an unfortunate part in its demise as well. Great documentary, if you haven't seen it yet, is Poverty Incorporated. And that you'll really love that because Poverty Incorporated really deals with Haiti. And you'll see some things in that video that'll blow you away. But so for me, when we came here to the States, the only history that I had was hearing the nightmares from my mother. So for me, I wanted to tune all of that out. But it wasn't easy for us here in the States because, back in the 70s and 80s, Haitians were terrorized. We were blamed for AIDS in the 80s. And it was a great level of hostility. The hostilities that they fled from in Haiti were only replicated in the United States by the Black community. And it was a very horrific experience growing up.
You brought me back to the 80s and 90s and to the propaganda surrounding AIDS, which of course is another fiasco created by Anthony Fauci. And I'm sure that being in the Bronx and with the Haitian population in New York, you may already be aware, or your friends and family may already be aware, that Anthony Fauci literally took orphans and wards of the states and used them as guinea pigs for AZT. And
Wow.
literally put babies under the knife, put G tubes in them, and put AZT in them. Because once you're a ward of the state, your parent or in loco parentis can allow you to be part of a medical experiment. I mean, he's a very, very evil man. Not to mention.
Way to go, Lucy! You got our guest all emotional now.
Let me put more deep depth in that statement, and we can. So, I'm one of 4, born on my birthday, 52 years ago. My dad wasn't in the hospital when my mom went into labor. We have 2 siblings that we don't know their location, their name, because the hospital took it upon themselves to say only 2 children were born. And the records are locked.
God.
The records are locked, and we cannot get into the hospital to figure out the gender nor the location of 2 siblings. And this was a common practice in New York. There's a hospital in New York that's closed down because they were doing experiments with families with twins, triplets, quadruplets, you name it. They were doing experiments of separating the families.
Oh my God.
Wow.
This is Liam Sheff wrote about this in his book, Official Stories Are to Protect Officials. And he exposed what was going on in the New York system. I am so sorry. So you were actually quadruplets.
Yeah. And I have 2. I have my brother that I thought was my twin for the first 25 years of my life. He's still in Bronx. He's in the Bronx. And I have 2 other siblings that don't know where they are. And
I am so incredibly sorry.
But
folks,
that's the evil. That's the wickedness.
Yeah, it's evil. Folks, we do not rehearse this show beforehand. So Lucy had no idea that question was going to hit where it hit. And I did not know, Watson, you were one of 4. And obviously a fortunate one, but I mean, that'd just be crazy to try to figure out where your other 2 are.
Yeah.
What happened? I mean, it's just the evil in this world. And I know there's a darkness in Haiti that I've had people describe. And in India, there's a place that in Calcutta that there's some darkness. There's just some dark places in this world. And you just wonder, are they ever going to see the light? So we've had several shows on ballot access and the 2 primary rule that's required by the parties these days. And that's run into some problems with some people. So let's look at these clips here and tell me what you think about the 2-party rule.
When you ask these people if our political parties have too much power, well, they've got too much control. And I don't know that power, it's that they just have too much control. And I'll give you a prime example. So I decided in 2022 that I would run for a state delegate seat. It's really not a power position in the county. It's really doesn't really do a whole lot, right? But I thought I'd run for that and help Diego Morales. And I thought, well, I'll run for state delegate. Well, Russ decided that this was such a catastrophe that he challenged me because I had only voted in one race. Now, you've got a Republican candidate who's doctorate prepared, a 50-year-old female, owns her own business, is a great role model for the community and women, and he blocks me. But I'm the only one. Now he didn't have a problem. He didn't have a problem on signing off on 6 Democrats and letting them run as Republicans.
Charles, tell us, our audience, a little bit about yourself, what the heck you're doing on the Mouthwash Show, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about this 2 primary rule.
Okay, thanks, John. I'm going to keep it brief about myself because I'd really like to. I really haven't had much of an opportunity to talk about the 2 primary rule, how it affected me, and how I've kind of fought against it. But it impacted me because I ran for Congress in 2022, and I was eligible to run for Congress on December 31st, 2021, and I was ineligible on January 1st, 2022 because of the Indiana General Assembly adding an amendment to Indiana Code 3827, which made the 1 primary rule the 2 primary rule. And so now here's the big kicker. In 2022, my candidacy for Indiana delegate to the Republican Party was not challenged. So I was on the ballot as a Republican for a delegate to the state party. No one challenged that. I was only challenged to run as a Republican for District 4, for Congress for District 4. And I'm running in the 4th Congressional District, in a district where the primary is the race. That if there's not a primary challenger to the Republican candidate or incumbent in the 4th District, that's who you're going to get, because the 4th District doesn't elect a Democrat. And so if the party is removing the primary challenger to the incumbent in the primary, then the people of the 4th District aren't getting an option. In the 2020 race, the primary challenger to Jim Baird was removed for the 1 primary rule. His name was James Peters. He had never voted in a primary. And so they removed him from the ballot, even though he was a Republican, for not having 1 primary.
Now you're good to go, right? They can't take you off the ballot for the 2 primary rule, right?
Yeah, that can't happen unless they pass the 3 primary rule, but they're out of session, so they're not going to do that. But I did want to make and I constantly hear from establishment type pundits that I don't think that they've thought this through all the way, because they all say the same thing. They say that they're doing this and they agree with the 2 primary rule because it keeps Democrats off the ballot. And that's the case. From the court case said the same thing. It's due to party rating. And frankly, I just think that that's not true, because in reality, it just keeps everybody off the ballot. And on that day in February, where I had to go in front of the election division, there was no contest whether I was a Republican. They admitted it. The other attorney on the other side, his party, Republican Party, admitted it, that I'm a Republican. They were only taking me off the ballot for the 2 primary rule. There were Democrats there that were taken off for the Democrat ticket, and they had run in the election. Get this. The prior election, they ran, they got 10,000 votes, but they still only had 1 primary vote. And so they were going to run again in 2022, and the party kicked them off the ballot, even though 2 years before they had run and got 10,000 votes.
So, John, we appreciate you coming on the show, and I assume you were listening to Charles Bookwalter talk about some things. And does that sound familiar?
That sounds extremely familiar. And it's exactly what you both said. It is the Incumbent Protection Act. They do not want competition. They don't want outsiders running that can bring something new to the table that can fix problems people are facing.
Yeah. So tell our viewers, maybe they haven't heard of you, but I've heard some of your commercials on the local radio here, and I'm quite impressed.
Okay. My name is John Rust. I am a chicken farmer from Seymour, Indiana, running for the United States Senate. I got into this race just this year. I've never ran for political office in my life, but it just is something that I feel very strongly about with what's happening in Washington on how our career politicians, they don't know what they're doing. This national debt is crushing people with the inflation it is causing. I think we have to send people to Washington who are outsiders, who have had experience with fiscal responsibility on my own farms and business It's just something we have to have. And I think that's why they have this law. They're scared of people like me running.
So real quick, let's review your primary record.
Yes, the last Republican primary I voted in was 2016 with Ted Cruz, Donald Trump. And so now they're saying, well, you missed 2 primaries in a row.
Your county chair would have to write you a note. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And they have not done that to this point.
They have not done that. Just very much holding to the 2 primary rule to keep me off the ballot, even though I have never given to the Democratic Party in my life. I have only given to Republican candidates starting back in the mid-1990s up until today. If you look at my FEC campaign donations, it's always been 100% to the Republican Party and conservative candidates, very conservative candidates like Ted Cruz.
This is the thanks you get. That's how that's
right.
It's like to find how do you do. We're going to bring David out here, put him on the hot seat. And David Shelton, how are you doing tonight? Now you're the clerk of Knox County. Am I right?
That is correct. I'm also the chairman of Knox County as well.
The chairman. So you could write a note if somebody was to get on the ballot, right?
Potentially. Here in my simple committee, we evaluate candidate requests like that. So we spread the love among the 4 central committee members here in my county.
So it's not a dictatorship like some areas. So
no.
So let's get our man of the hour out here. Let's get John Rust back out on the hot seat here. And then we're going to talk about this 2-party primary thing. And I'm going to give David the first crack at this thing and to have a comment, a question, or whatever. So go ahead, David.
All right. So you have a court date tomorrow. I'm going to have a pretty extensive deposition schedule tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yes. They want me for 7 hours tomorrow.
Well, let me give you some practice for that, okay? So 2022, you said you didn't vote in the primary because you didn't think there was one. I believe you had a 7-candidate primary for the 9th Congressional District. Isn't that correct? In 2022 there in the 9th District?
I don't know.
Okay. You did. You had about 7 candidates. In 2020, I heard you state that you didn't vote because the primary was delayed. Well, it was delayed, but your opportunity to vote was extended by a month. Now, as an election official, I know how I handle my elections. I bent over backwards to make sure anybody and everybody could vote who wanted to vote. I personally went to people's homes to deliver ballots when they've been diagnosed with COVID. The only reason why you haven't voted in the 22 primary, the 2020 primary, and the 2018 primary is because you didn't want to. In Indiana, we have such an open and enhanced system for voting early. That's the only reason why you don't have a primary voting history is because you just flat out didn't want to.
Was that a question?
That was more of a statement.
Yeah.
But, why didn't you vote in those years? I mean, I do want to applaud you for wanting to get out there. And it takes a special person to go on a statewide stage like that. But why did you not vote in the last 3 primaries that you had an opportunity to vote in?
I voted in 2016. I did not vote in 2020, correct. And I didn't know that it was required to vote. I believe you vote in the fall elections, and I voted in those. And, I still believe I'm an American citizen. I'm entitled to vote. I'm entitled to participate. 80% of Hoosiers are banned from running for political office based on this law that very, very few people know about.
This is a right, left, center show, and we've had Dana Black and Curtis Hill on. And this clip here, Dana's calling out the Republican Party a little bit about being cool with Curtis. So let's take a look at this, and you can see this exchange, and you can tell me what you think. Is the Republican Party down on Curtis?
Republican Party just announcing its inaugural DEI class, which Tiffany is a part of, and I congratulated her, but I also send y'all a warning: be careful, because when they send out bad policies that harm our communities, they either gonna say, oh, well, they was down with it, what's wrong with it, or just be careful. That's all I'm saying. Just be careful. But what I'm saying is, so is it the Republican Party now realizes that they are under the gun and they got to recruit some black people? Because see, Curtis, bruh, you got more votes than Trump in 2016 in the state of Indiana. You the black man who ran and won as a attorney general. Black man in Indiana got more votes than Trump. But what did they do 4 years later? They primaried you up out of there, brother. So you can't tell me that the Republican Party is all about diversity and inclusion. And when they had a true winner, a true winner on their team, they said bye-bye to you. I don't even know why they did you like that. You got more votes than Trump in 2016.
We would be remiss if we didn't have Mark Small in Small Talk, because he's been in several episodes and always has an interesting take on the subject at hand. Let's take a look and see what the best of Small Talk is.
Hi, I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk. Marion County, Indiana, where Indianapolis is located, has 9 townships. What's a township? Well, it's kind of a part of government because it was created like in the 1800s. We still have it around. And that's generally where the small claims courts are. Here in Marion County, those are the courts that normally handle landlord-tenant disputes. In other words, landlord disputes, because we have landlord law. Now, it used to be that a landlord's attorneys could pick the township in which they'd file for an eviction. Well, when they do that, and it's all in one township, things get a little skewed. So the law changed, and you have to file for an eviction and back rent, generally, in the township in which the property is located. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it means when you've got the constable getting paid salary, I guess, but they also get paid for every time they serve process on somebody. They go out and they serve an order. Those filing fees mount up, and generally the constable is the most highly paid public official in township. When they run against the slate and they're elected, guess what? It means they're running against what the party wanted to have in there. Well, somebody had worked for the party for a while and they were supposed to get this plum job and everything, and they didn't. And that apparently happens once in a while, as it's happening right here in Marion County with one of our townships. Here's the thing. When somebody runs against who the party really wants for that office and they win, they won. Get over it. People shouldn't be having to worry about whether somebody's being frozen out as a constable. Let's talk about reality. If you really want to mess up the court system, the small claim court system, and get people's attention, everybody getting sued for an eviction or something, request a jury trial. They'll send everything downtown. You really want to do a protest? Do that. Ask for due process. They don't know what to do with it. Peace. Mark Small. Small Talk.
Hi, this is John Schmitz for the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty fresh take on politics. And I'm down here doing the peeps on the streets at the Spark down here on the Circle, you know, where they close down the Circle for it to be more safe. And it is sort of cool. It's pretty relaxing. So I'm going to ask the peeps on the street what they think about social media and how kind or not kind it is. All right, out of the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, which one of you do you think is the most brutal or the meanest of those platforms?
Twitter.
Twitter. Now, why would that be?
I just feel like a lot of people tweet about things and they just say whatever's on their mind because they think no one's ever going to see it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, out of the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, which do you think is the meanest or the most brutal platform?
Twitter, but I think so, yeah.
Why would you say that?
Just, I don't use the social platforms too much myself in my posting, but just from what I see and the discourse that happens on there, just my observations.
So out of the social media, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, which one do you think of those is the most brutal? Which one of those you think has the meanest people on it?
Definitely Instagram.
Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah.
So why Instagram?
Because of the shade room.
Oh, okay. They just shame you on there, huh? If you're not just exactly right.
Exactly.
All right. All right. Out of the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, which one of those do you think may be the meanest or the most brutal out of those three?
He said Facebook, Twitter, and
Instagram.
Definitely Twitter.
Twitter, yeah. Why would you say that about Twitter?
It just is.
All right, that's a wrap for Peeps on the Street from downtown Indianapolis. Tonight we have a special guest. We have Robert Evans, and he has been the gentleman that's been trying to get the phone records for the mayor's from the mayor's office for quite a while now, and he's finally gotten them. And he's on our show tonight, and we're going to talk about that.
When the riots happened in 2020, I saw how much of an impact it had on the city. I was like, hey, where was the mayor? Just out of curiosity, I filed an APRA request with the city to find out.
Okay, so tell us what that is real quick.
Yeah, sure. So APRA is the Access to Public Records Act. So essentially, it is the state's version of a FOIA. Basically, nothing was responsive to my request, primarily because the mayor does not use an email address. And this is the capital city of the 13th largest state in the country. And how is he operating without using an email address. What stood out to me that was really funny is you can find a bunch of pictures of the mayor online sitting in front of his computer typing, but he doesn't have an email address. So what's he typing?
He does some photo things. I didn't know if you noticed.
I have no idea what it is, but he has a computer, but he doesn't have an email address. Well, the records I have, they don't show the mayor's name at all, which shows the mayor doesn't. Based on this, I don't see that the mayor actually has an official Indianapolis cell phone on this plan, which makes sense because he doesn't have an email either. So, on the record, you have the chief of staff, communications director, one other person, I'm not sure what his title is, the mayor's personal assistant, and then former deputy mayor David Hampton. And if you look at the cell phone records, the only calls made from any of those lines during the time of the riots were 2 1-minute calls at 9:30 that night made by Hampton. That's it. That's the only thing that they have.
It makes you scratch your head, doesn't it? It makes it seem like constant communication isn't quite what I thought constant communication was. And I think it raises more questions than it does answers. And I think at this point, I think the mayor needs to provide some proof that he was in constant communication, because we have something here that really shows that not so fast. He's not been in constant communication. And if you recall those events, it sure didn't seem like anybody was in, we had people murdered and killed and shot and buildings burned, and it was serious. Chris Beatty was murdered during that riot. And I know that that's a very sensitive issue in our city that, hey, if we had proper leadership, some things might have been different. So I commend you for your efforts on this, and hopefully we'll get to the bottom of some more things and figure this thing out.
Thankfully, our city hasn't been overridden with riots, and I would simply do the job that is the job of the mayor. You got to be on the scene. You can't be checked out. You can't dial it in. You got to be there, and you've got to give your command staff at the IMPD guidance, direction, and backup. Our officers are trained and sworn to protecting life and property. In that instance, which spanned a full weekend, our mayor was AWOL. I mean, he simply was unaccounted for. That's not okay. And our officers were told in the vacancy of that leadership to stand down. Let it rip. Not good. Not right. And leadership needs to be present, visible, and on the scene.
And that's a wrap for the Best of Mouthwash show. We hope you tune in to see our next shows coming up. We have a lot of good stuff planned, and we appreciate your viewership. Keep on watching the Mouthwash. Tell your friends, spread the word, and we'll see you again next week.